Octaves are a really useful element to bring into your playing. And while there's not a whole lot of harmonic information in them, because you're really just playing one note at two different octaves, you don't get any character in them like you do in thirds or in sixes. They're still really useful for dramatic, kind of bold statements most of the time. Certainly they can be used subtly, but there's kind of a power that's central to them that can be really useful, especially for laying out a melody. The shapes of octaves are not hard to see, and once you get a pair of them together, you can block them and move them up and down the neck. This is probably one of the most familiar shapes, and of course it exists right within a major chord form. There it is right there. We've got C, C, and we've got another one on top. So already, without trying too hard, we can see two shapes of octaves, right here and right here. Now, starting with this shape on the bottom sixth and fourth strings, these of course can move up and down the neck. Same shape on the fifth string. On the fourth string we get a spread since there's a different interval between strings, but between fourth and second string we have to spread it out a little bit more, so we can go from here, and then that spread of 3 frets rather than 2 continues for the top top string to the third string. And again, you can move those around. You just have to watch it when you're hopping between. Or like in our example, you have to be ready to change shapes pretty quickly. Those are kind of the standard and most common forms. You'll also see them sometimes played like this, which again you can see out of a chord form. There's a C there and a C there. Or if you play a C down here, we've got a C here and here. So you can often find them in chords. Now, one important note about it is because you will always have a spread between strings, you have to mind your right hand technique, and there are a couple ways to tackle that. Probably the most classic is the Wes Montgomery technique, where he used his thumb on the right hand, and that's kind of a padded, muted hit anyway. And then with the fat of his left hand index finger, he would block that string in between so that he got. And that's kind of what you want to go for. Again, kind of a muted sound, and that's the type of idea in which octaves might be used a little bit more subtly. You can also stroke it pretty hard, as we do through most of this example. You get a little bit of a kind of percussive stroke on the right, and I'm actually striking 4 strings here, but only 2 of the strings are sounding. That's because again I'm blocking this third string with the fat of this finger, and the top string with the pad of my pinky. You can go total finger style, which is most useful if you want to arpeggiate those octaves. And you can also do a kind of a hybrid thing where you're picking on the bottom and using a finger on top. And of course all those hold true for different octave forms. But again, you want to watch your right hand technique, block the strings that you're not playing, and you can also use these kind of block forms to move them up and down the neck. So let's see how those are applied in our example. We start out with octave pairs on the 5th and 3rd strings. And I'm using that right hand technique of a strum. So I'm just coming right up, outlining an E minor essentially. And here I've got one of those quick hops, right? I'm going from this 1-3 form to a 1-4 form since I come up on the string pairs. And same here. Now I'm hopping between 4 and 2 and 3 and 1 on the strings, and I want to be careful not to let too much of the other pair ring through, or I'm going to lose the distinction of the phrase. So again, just hopping between those 2 forms. Now I adjust my form so that I can reach around and arpeggiate. This also might help to adjust form sometimes so that if you're running out of neck, right? If I'm going down here and I want to hit G octaves, now I want an F octave. I can't maintain that form. I have no more neck left, so I want to switch back to this one. So here I'm going. Right? And closing out with another pair back in the similar form, but down, a string on top and a string on bottom. Now I changed technique quite a bit to hit a harder part, and here's an example of where octaves can help make a really bold statement. Again, with not much harmonic information, but it gives you some power on the bottom. And with any luck, your keyboardist and your bass player are taking care of the changes for you. So I start with a little bit of a harder hit up here on those same shapes. And then, so I'm essentially moving an octave down on octaves, right? I've got pair up here, pair down here using the open strings. This is another place you can find octaves. Some people will tune that way. Sorry, that's where we go. Back to this form, the nice climb. And then just a little fill here, not in octaves. And then same thing, E octaves. And now I'm coming down to land on this E. So I'm going to go. And I close that phrase out with a higher pair. And sometimes you'll find that in funk or maybe some of the lighter funk pop, like a Jackson 5 kind of thing. You get a lot of funk guys will just hang on one note. So that phrase repeats. It's and then up here. The second time I hit it, I come up and I hit this chord. Now this, again, the approach on this exercise is exclusively about octaves. So I've got 2 octave pairs here. Creates a little chord there. I've got an E's and D's. And since you're in E minor, you might think of that as an E minor 9. But for our purposes, it's just a couple of octave pairs. And then we close out with. And here's one of a few opportunities on the neck of the guitar to actually get 4 octaves in, right? I've got my open D, I have a D here, open E, another E here, another one here, and the high one up here. There are a couple places on the neck, or a couple positions where you can find more than two pairs at a time. Here I can get 3 octave notes in. That's a little bit awkward to move around, but it's doable. But here again I can get 4 in, and that gives me a nice strong conclusion to the piece.